Big heat continues to build for parts of Florida. What's going on, guys? I'm meteorologist Jonathan Kagas. In this video, we're going to talk about where we have heat warnings and advisories for mainly North Florida in the Panhandle. We're stuck under that big heat dome that really is getting the headlines through most of the central part of the country. Then we're going to take you towards North Florida, Central Florida, and South Florida, break down the forecast for you. And then we're going to venture, of course, into the tropics towards the end of this video. We'll break down what's out there now. Of course, we have Franklin. That is expected to strengthen. Two other areas the Hurricane Center is watching, and then long range, there could be some shenanigans in the Gulf of Mexico. So we're going to touch on that. We've been kind of touching on that for the last few days. There's been some happenstance on some of the models out there, if you will. Before we get into the video, if you do want to stay updated on all things Florida weather and the tropics, of course, as we've entered at the peak of hurricane season, you have to hit subscribe. Please do so. If you find this content helpful, give it a thumbs up. It really does help us out a lot. All right, so here you go. For your Wednesday evening, August 23rd, there's 6 o'clock, and we do increase storm chances a little bit in Central Florida. I'm going to broaden this out and show you the entire state in just 1 second. But here we go with scattered storms, mainly along into the west of I-75. We really need the rain out here. Again, not everybody is going to see the rain, but there will at least be a few thunderstorms out there. A few more scattered showers trying to push on shore later on into your Wednesday evening. There's Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. I think some of us, especially right along the Space Coast, are going to start to wake up with a few scattered downpours around. You see by 8, 9 o'clock, a few of those start to push inland as well. Notice most of us are dry, but really south of Orlando and then right along the coast, we'll see rain chances, again, at about 30% on your Thursday afternoon. There is 2 o'clock, and then going into your evening, most of us are dry again. So if you're trying to go to swim practice, swim lessons, anything like that outside, I think Thursday evening is going to be pretty good for you. Most of that shower and thunderstorm activity gets on out of here by the evening. High temperatures on your Thursday, August 24th, getting back into the low to mid 90s, pretty much right where we should be for this time of the year. The further north and west you are, we'll have the opportunity to add a few more degrees. Again, getting towards 94 in Ocala, 93 in the villages. We are closer to that big ridge of high pressure. I'll show you where that is in just 1 second, but all the big time heat, at least this time around, is going to be situated into northwest Florida, the Florida Panhandle, and then certainly towards the central part of the country. There you go, Pensacola, Panama City, Port St. Joe, in that excessive heat warning. Tallahassee is in that heat advisory again, as we are under the influence of this big kind of ridge, this dome of high pressure that you may be hearing about, again, capturing the national headlines as that chunk of high pressure sits out over Oklahoma, over Missouri, over Texas, and really bakes them again. Out west, we're talking about heat indices at about 120 plus at times. We're on the tail edge of that this time around towards the Florida Panhandle, that big orange shaded color there. We're kind of out of the grip in southern and central Florida, so not really in the main event this time around. It's hot enough, though. That eventually breaks down over the next couple of days, and we will start to see things improve in terms of our temperature. I'll show you those temperatures in just 1 second. Here we go, 4 o'clock on Wednesday from a state perspective, and there are a few storms around. Again, because we are under the influence of that ridge of high pressure, mainly towards North Florida, that is where we are going to be on the driest side of anybody in the state. Notice we still have a few scattered storms around. There's Thursday morning at 7 o'clock, again, trying to push to the Space Coast. A few more scattered storms early on Thursday morning in and around Key West. As we get towards Thursday afternoon, a few storms around, mainly, again, south of Orlando. And then as we roll through the evening, that's 10 o'clock, most of us start to dry things back out again for your Thursday night. In terms of your pinpoint forecast for Thursday, there's some of the heat again, a little cooler than where we were on Wednesday in the Panhandle. We were in the triple digits across parts of the Panhandle, back to 96 and tally 98 degrees in Bonifay, Apalachicola pushing 91 again. A little bit cooler with that easterly breeze in St. Augustine. We're going to be back to the upper 80s because of that easterly breeze off of the Atlantic. We'll have a 20% shot for a few downpours in St. Augustine, and then up the road for us in Jacksonville. Back towards Central Florida, we're going to increase rain chances ever so slightly. Again, pushing 90 in Daytona Beach, 88 at the Cape, 92 in Orlando with a 30% chance for storms. And then in Ocala, we'll have a 20% shot. Same deal for us into Tampa, into St. Pete. St. Pete Beach will have a 20% chance for a few storms to pass by. Again, the rain chance isn't zero along the Gulf Coast, but we'll be doing a little dodging, and more often than not, you are going to be dry. Again, highest rain chances of the bunch, of the entire state, are going to reside in South Florida. You see rain chances up to 30% in Fort Lauderdale, 60% chance in Belle Glade, interior South Florida. 30% shot in Lake Okeechobee and Okeechobee itself. 20% chance for storms in Naples and a 40% chance for more storms into Fort Myers. On to the tropics. Harold is gone. Gert is basically gone as well. Its remnant low just kind of spins out there. Franklin remains a tropical storm. And then we have those two areas to talk about. That bigger shot is what's left of Emily. That could likely return to Emily over the next couple of days. Hurricane Center really giving that a 70% chance to redevelop. That other wave off of Africa, a lower chance. Those chances continue to drop. Look at Franklin. After it leaves Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti, it's expected to strengthen slowly over the next couple of days. It kind of regains itself a little bit as it moves away from the mountainous terrain of the Dominican Republic. But then as it does so, watch what happens. Expected to get near hurricane force on Friday, expected to become a hurricane on Saturday, and then really start to explode as we move towards Sunday, 8 o'clock, when you have a Category 1 storm, again, strengthening. And then as we get towards Monday at 8 o'clock, we have a Category 2 storm. Now, we're going to watch that close for Bermuda. So if you do have any cruises up this way, that is also something to pay attention to, that we're likely going to have a strengthening hurricane as we get into the early stages of next week. All right, I mentioned this about that potential Gulf development, and I cautioned really over the past few days to be careful what you see on social media, because there's a lot of models out there that want to put this behemoth hurricane in Florida or somewhere else along the Gulf. Is it in the realm of possibilities? Well, yeah, we're approaching Labor Day weekend. We're approaching the peak of hurricane season, and typically that's when Florida could see some really nasty storms. But I just caution, there's no way to know if a storm is going to get going and where that storm is going to develop just yet. And I want to show you, if you watched yesterday's video on August 22nd, the European run, and let me just kind of show you Emily, or what could become Emily again, was up here and went away already, so it's not going to affect anything. That's where Franklin could be on August 30th. And if you recall the video that I showed you on August 22nd, there was a really big hurricane that the Euro had in the Panhandle of Florida. It's not there anymore. So this is my kind of plea, if you will, that while there is going to be the possibility for a storm in the Gulf as we close out August or start September, to not freak out at this point. We're going to start to get in a more conducive environment to getting thunderstorms to erupt. But there is a lot to iron out, whether they're going to have enough time to consolidate and be able to strengthen in the Gulf of Mexico or anything like that. So there's a lot of variables 6, 7, 8 days away from any kind of potential thing happening. So I just want to be clear about that. I do want to show you some of the ensembles, though, that kind of show that potential. So these are the European ensembles. Ensemble forecasting is the way to go at this stage in the game before anything gets developed or when something is developing, because what the ensemble is, it's the European, but there are 51 different members with different initial conditions kind of put into that. So if we start to get a bunch of things latching on, a bunch of those members latching on with different initial conditions, it raises confidence that we are going to have something coming to fruition. So first and foremost, all these out here where you see the crosshairs, this is Franklin, and a lot of the members of the European model get this thing really strong. I mean, pushing way over 100 miles an hour. So potentially major hurricane as it gets towards Bermuda and beyond. So we're going to watch that for them. That is not coming to Florida. European ensembles want another wave to come off, and they do develop it to the west of the Cabo Verde Islands. So going to have to watch that as we get into the first week of September. Here we go out here, though. This is the Gulf storm, and I'll zoom in on this in real time, and at least the potential Gulf storm. We do have some members on board. Okay, it's not a ton. Remember, there's 51, and count how many lines we have here. So not every single ensemble member is on board. It is hinting at something, so certainly, again, it raises the antennas that we want to watch out for. And there is going to be a cold front over here, so I would not anticipate, if anything, it's going to head towards Texas or Louisiana, so it would favor the eastern Gulf. Nonetheless, I want to point out here the intensity of some of these. There's one that kind of gets it strong here. That's winds pushing hurricane force in the orange, but most keep it relatively weak. If there is, in fact, a cold front there, a dip in the jet stream by that time, and let me kind of go back to my other map real quick and point this out, it would start to get some wind shear injected into it, and that might help keep it weak. Again, this is way out. We're doing like pinpoint forecast on something that hasn't even developed yet, but just looking at some of the steering environment that would be out there and some of the environment that it would get. Now, I want to show you the GFS. The GFS also at one time put a very strong hurricane in the Panhandle and towards the Big Bend. That is no longer happening in its operational run. I will say here a few members are on board, and it is a little stronger. Certainly, you see the pinks there showing up, so that is still favoring at least a few of its members. And again, there's even less members on board, so that is important to know of the GFS, the American GFS ensembles, showing that there. It's something that we are going to watch. Again, if you recall, I showed the environment is probably going to be the best it's been all hurricane season. Again, that's typical. We're at the peak of hurricane season. We're still fighting some bad things in terms of some wind shear and some dry air. That's good for us. But certainly this has our attention. Everybody should be paying attention to something like this. Everybody should be paying attention no matter what, though, because it is the peak of hurricane season. But again, a few members putting a significant system in the Eastern Gulf. Be careful what you see on social media. Ensemble forecasting is the way to go. Those model runs, flip-flop, strong hurricane here, then washes it out. You got to pay attention to the environment. The environment would suggest that some development is possible. We're going to have to wait and see if the Central American gyre, that semi-permanent area of low pressure over Central America, spits something out. So we're watching it closely, but again, this is no time to freak out or anything like that, because we could end up dealing with a low-end storm as well, or just some tropical rain. That's in the realm of possibilities. And if you follow the European ensembles, which do a pretty good job this stage of the game, a lot of those want to keep that entity weak. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Of course, we have our eye on the heat for the Panhandle. We need some rain in Central Florida. We have enough in Southeast. And we're going to be watching the tropics closely, of course, as we continue through the peak of hurricane season. The climatological peak is September 10th. I do think it's going to be a quick shutoff, because the strength of El Nino goes through, and this little convective pulse known as the MJO that's helping all this stuff to flare up will be leaving the Atlantic Basin, and I think really our chances go way down for anything after that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up, please. And if you want to stay updated on all things Florida weather, especially as we venture through the peak of hurricane season, you have to hit subscribe. Please do that, and we'll catch you next time.